So good morning. I see some new faces here. So for those of you who don't know me, I am Rista Malanka. I'm one of the two co-chairs of this committee and will be chairing the meeting this morning. I think the first thing on the agenda is to go around and do introductions for people who maybe don't know everybody or some new members here. So the easiest way I think is for me to just go around the screen and have everybody introduce themselves. So Aaron, if you want to start.
Sure, I'm Aaron Budris. I'm a Senior Regional Planner at the Naugatuck+Valley Council of Governments.
Christine.
Christina O'Neill, Environmental Planner with the Naugatuck+Valley Council of Governments.
Kim.
I'm Kim Bradley, and I am the Greenways and Trails Coordinator with DEEP.
Great. Ken.
My name is Ken Byron, and I am a new communications associate here at the Naugatuck+Valley Council of Governments.
Mark.
Good morning, Mark Nielsen, Assistant Director, NVCOG.
Vincent.
Oh yeah, sorry, I had to unmute. I'm an engineer in private practice, and I represent Naugatuck as a volunteer.
Great. Brian.
Hi, everyone. Brian Sirowich. I'm the chairperson of the Seymour Economic Development Commission.
Great. Paul.
Yes, I don't know how my wife's name got in there, but it's Paul Benevich, Watertown Town Engineer, speaking.
Anna.
Good morning, Anna Bergeron, DOT Planning Bike Ped Coordinator. Thank you.
Josh. Yeah. Josh.
Josh LeCart, Planning Director, NVCOG.
Katie.
Hi, everyone. I'm Katie Schlick. I'm a new environmental planner at NVCOG.
Great. A. Sorello.
Yes, Tony Cirillo at SLR Consulting. I represent the town of Watertown.
Great.
Morning.
Jack.
Co-chair and represent Derby.
Rob.
Hi, Rob Phillips, Executive Director at NHCOG.
Lisa.
Good morning, Lisa Jennings, Thomaston, Connecticut.
Stacy.
Good morning, Stacy Safchuk, Land Use Administrator in Thomaston.
Great. And Jim, are you?
Jim Stewart, Naugatuck Public Works.
All right, great. And I think that's everybody on the call for today. Welcome. So first, we're going to jump right into a update from Kim Bradley, who is the new Connecticut Deep Rec Trails Program Coordinator. I think I got that title right, but she'll correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah. Yep. Give me 1 second. Oop, I can't do that first. Okay. Share screen. Okay, I think everybody can see that now. So I was thanking Aaron. This is actually one of the first presentations I've given with a few slides from our standard slide deck from DEP. So I appreciate the opportunity. As Rista noted, my name is Kim Bradley, and I am the new Trails and Greenways Coordinator for the State Park Division of DEP. I started my position in July and am kind of stepping into the role that Lori Giannotti previously had. So I'm very excited. Luckily, Lori Giannotti is working part-time to help transition me in, and she will be staying with us through this new Rec Trails grant round, which is coming up. I'll explain a little more about where that's coming from. But yeah, today I'd just like to give you a little introduction to who I am. Make sure everyone knows that they can contact me within DEP and let you know a little bit about the different directions that the Connecticut Trails and Greenways program is moving. So just so everyone knows, I am a UConn alum. So I got my BS and MS from UConn. I actually am very connected to the Naugatuck River Greenway because I grew up in Watertown, Connecticut. So went all the way through my primary and high school career in Watertown before I moved on to UConn. So I definitely know the area quite well. Previous to stepping into my role at DEP, I was the Yukon Connecticut Trails Program Coordinator. So I worked very closely with Aaron Budrist here on the Connecticut Trails Census. I was going around the state with him, collecting data from our IR counters, as well as working with the data that we collected through the survey methodologies that we used. I think that is a great skill set to have coming into this position with Yukon, understanding the different methodologies we can use and the technical aspects of understanding the usage of our trails. I also helped to launch the Connecticut Trail Finder program. So you may have met me previously. I know a lot of people say, I've seen you somewhere. We did launch that Connecticut Trail Finder. We're working closely with Yukon to get the contract up to date to continue both of these programs. And I'm very excited to help from the DEP perspective and help communicate the asset that these resources really are. Previous to that, I actually worked with the Connecticut Institute of Resilience and Climate Adaptation. I was a living shoreline specialist with them. And I actually served as an environmental and ecological consultant for just under 10 years. So I have a pretty broad range and reach of the skill sets and different projects that I was able to work with. I think that really lends itself to working within the agency, within DEP, and particularly with our Bureau of Natural Resources when it comes to the challenges we have in land use planning and looking at all the aspects of trails and access to our open spaces. I did do quite a bit of volunteering within the trail community previous to starting my professional positions in trails. So I served as a president of a regional land trust. I've worked very closely with the New England Mountain Bike Association and have done quite a bit of work both developing, implementing, and managing single track trail systems. I also serve on the 8 Mile Wild and Scenic Watershed Coordination Committee. So this is through the National Park Service. And we actually have a long distance trail within the corridor of that wild and scenic watershed. And I've served on my local inland wetland and conservation commission. So what is beneficial is I feel like I have a very broad reach of all the different aspects that we're working with within these trails and corridors overall. So just to give you an overview, there's quite a bit of tasks and different objectives that the role of the Trails and Greenways coordinator has. So these are just a subset of the hats that I wear within my position. But the two major realms that I really serve internally within DEP and for the state of Connecticut overall, I help to advise our park and rec supervisors, as well as work closely with our foresters and wildlife individuals within our wildlife division in order to direct both the policies on a statewide level for trails, as well as make decisions on trail establishment, trail maintenance, dealing with any trail issues on our DEP properties. So within my first few months, I've been meeting with all the different supervisors. We've actually been actively looking at some authorization review on a few of our state forest properties. Many may have heard of a project that was funded by the Greenways funds in Patchogue State Forest. So we're doing a mountain bike trail planning effort up there. I've also been looking into inventorying our cooperative trail agreements. So some of these could have come through supervisors of parks and forests, or it could come through our land acquisition and management division. So I'm working very closely with the different groups within DEP to really help check in on the status of some of these agreements, establish some if they are not in place, and deal with all things trails within DEP. The second and kind of one of the key roles that I serve is as a liaison to all of our different external groups. So I am a liaison to the Connecticut Greenways Council, working directly with them, as well as the Equine Advisory Council or the Horse Council in Connecticut. I also work with groups like this and try to stay up to date on all of the efforts that are going on. I am pretty much your main contact within DEP for all things trails. Feel free to reach out to me, and I'm sure many of you worked closely with Lori Giannotti previously, so you are aware of this. And one of the key aspects of my role, and pretty much what will be a focus coming into the next few months, is administration of the DEP state and federal grants program. And in particular, I'm sure many of you are interested in the recreational trail grant program. So previous to the recreational trail grant program within Connecticut, we were part of the federal recreational trails grant program, which was a subset of DOT allocated funds. Back in 2015, it was decided that bond funding would be established in order to support recreational trails grants through the state process rather than going through the Federal Highway Administration administered grants. This provides more opportunities, and I'm sure Anna can speak to that, for trail support across the state. So we really have stepped up the capacity that we have within Connecticut to support our trail projects overall. The Connecticut General Statute Section 23-103 is what establishes the approaches that we take in applying these recreational trail grants. And what's really exciting this year is I started my position in mid-July, and within 2 weeks, there was $9 million allocated to this program. So as an example or some research I did to see where we were with funding, between 2015 and 2021, there was approximately $13 million that was put forward for trails projects. So the fact that we have $9 million within this round is pretty much close to doubling the program. So we have quite a bit of work to do on our end, but it's very exciting for all of our trail partners across the state. And it was a very well established and documented need. All of these grants can go through and support a number of trail focused projects. This can include planning, design, and construction. It also supports maintenance and restoration of existing trails. There is a focus on providing access to trails with those with disabilities, as well as increasing the user base on our trail systems. It is probably lesser known, but these funds can support acquisition of land or easements for the trail and trail corridors. And that is, it seems to be a little bit less used within the state of Connecticut, but we also have funds, as many are aware on this call, such as OSWA. So we do have funding mechanisms that are more focused on the broader acquisition of land. So this is a very specific and focused need if you were to go in that direction. And then finally, this program does support operation of educational programs to promote environmental protection as related and safety on trails as related to our recreational trails. So as a heads up, as I noted, we have $9 million that are allocated to the Rec Trails Grant Program in 2023. The anticipated timeline for execution and administration of these funds is we are looking to have a final approval of a new and updated application, likely towards the end of this week, maybe possibly by mid-November. I already have drafted a request for applications, so RFP, that is anticipated to go out November 30th. So that's going internally through our communications group within DEP. I'll have more updates on Monday, but we anticipate this coming out by the end of the month. The grant deadline based on the November 30th RFP will be March 1st, 2023. So you'll have about 3 months to pull your grants together. And we anticipate quick moving. So those that are working as the subcommittee of the Greenways Council will have to work closely with me in March to get grant announcements in the April timeframe. There may be some questions, and I'm willing to take those afterwards. We are trying to become more efficient with our process for actually getting the funds out. But at this time, there isn't anticipation that there could be about a 6-month period for contracting. So we have to take that in consideration when you're putting your timelines together for your grant. So just to give you a quick overview, as I noted, there are updates to our grant application. What the focus of our updates and review of this application was to increase the transparency of the steps we go through in scoring our grants. And hopefully it'll provide a very clear understanding of where you sit on the grant scoring, whether it's a high, medium, or low score. There was a focused interest in increasing the way that this grant is addressing diversity, equity, and inclusion, as well as accessibility to our trails. We've also added some components looking at community input, so looking at our public outreach in a little clearer way and looking at those community connections. And finally, the educational program evaluation criteria in the past was a little less focused and transparent than our standard trail projects, so construction, planning, design. We worked very hard to make these evaluation criteria really match up more clearly. And so that although I understand educational programs are very different from our standard trail projects, this hopefully will make it a little more easy to compare those types of projects overall. I do plan on holding a more in-depth webinar in the December 2022 timeframe, so stay tuned for more information on that to go over some of the updates of this application, as well as the fact that we have so many more funds available for the grant program this year. I want to ensure that those that are new to this trail grant understand all the different components of the grant application overall. And so before I jump into looking a little more closely at the grant, I'll try not to go too long because I know that there's other items on this agenda, but I did want to note we are working hard to continue to engage our larger trails community. And Erin has been participating in this group. I did want to make a note about this trails learning community. So these meetings are held every 4th Wednesday of the month. This month, it will be on November 30th, just because of the holiday schedule. The 4th Wednesday fell right before Thanksgiving. And as someone who's hosting for about 20 family members, I knew that that would be a little tedious. So we adjusted the time frame till after Thanksgiving. What this group does is it really aims to connect all of our trail volunteers and managers, so the broader trails group across the state, in order to network, find contacts that can provide some information on challenges you may be having on your trail, and learn from each other's experiences. So this is a lot less formal of a group than if some of you have participated in some of the Greenways Council meetings. That's more looking at really what's happening across the state at a very formal level. This is less formal and really providing a connection between all of our different trail partners across the state. I do encourage you to join in if you do have the time. We have member-led discussion topics. So this is not one individual leading a very tight agenda. It's more of opening up conversations on specific topics and allowing the discussion to go where it takes us. There is a database of networking contacts associated with the group, so you can be able to reach out to those you meet on the call. And we're hoping to use this group to support some of the planning process that we have for the 2023 Connecticut Trail Symposium, which will be coming back. So we're very excited about opportunities like this, and it's just one of the steps that our Greenways and Trails program are taking to better serve all of the partners across the state. So just really quick, I wanted to give you a brief look at our application and some of the updates that we'll see coming to it. Again, this is in kind of the last phase of sign off from the commissioner. So it should be released very soon. As soon as it's available, I will be getting it up on our Greenways website. And if anyone is interested, feel free to send me an email and I can get you on a list to send this out as well. What you'll see when you open this up is our guidelines are definitely more robust. You'll see that we've really laid out pretty clearly the scoring for each of these components. We're now looking at proposal completion playing into some of our scoring, our budget. One new item is we'll be looking to see if the project proposal area does include DECD listed distressed municipalities. We'll be looking more closely at some of the components that you've probably already included in your application materials, but looking at land ownership, and as we noted, whether your project is part of a Connecticut Greenway, and these community connections. So DOT has been doing some great work in their grant proposals. We really wanted to replicate and use the approaches they're taking to look at these community connections. So that will be a component and something we'll just look for within your application materials. Again, all of these are probably pieces you've seen previously within our application, just laying out the scoring a little more clearly for your understanding of how these are scored. Maintenance plans are a requirement now, both from our financial contracting standpoint. So we will be taking a closer look at what you've put together for a maintenance plan for your project. And we'll also be looking at some additional considerations. One thing that the Greenways Council had brought up is a concern that some of the geographic distribution of our grants wasn't spread as clearly across the state as we want to. So we'll be looking at that, as well as innovation. So if you are doing something with your project, with your construction or design that may be able to be replicated and used across the state, we'll be paying attention to that as well. Once again, our education proposal criteria have been laid out a little more clearly. There are specific components that will look at education programs and how they affect our communities. So methods and materials, outreach and partnerships will all be components that will be evaluated for educational groups. But again, these additional considerations will be used within the project. So overall, your grant application will look pretty much the same. So those that may be reapplying to the grant, you should not have too much work to do to get those materials back into us. The one piece that I will draw your attention to is this grant selection criteria. So there are a few little additional factors here, such as the DECD distressed municipality review and some of these components. So the scoring matrix may look a little overwhelming at times, but we're trying to break it down as clearly as possible to be able to provide the information we need to score your applications overall. And one other item I wanted to make sure we noted, we did break down the scope of work in a little different way. The approach we're taking with laying out the scope of work is to really align with our Connecticut general statutes and ensure that when we receive your scope of work, it fits very clearly within the different realms that are approved within the statute. This is our hopeful attempt at making our contracting process a bit more efficient. So this is something I worked on with our legal team. So it is something we're hoping that our applicants can adhere to. You could always break out a task into subtasks, and we've identified all the different types of subtasks that you can use. But this is exciting for us in that we're hoping it'll provide the opportunity to get the appendices within our contracts a little more clearly than we have in the past. And that's the same for how we lay out our projects and estimated costs. Again, I'm always here for discussion and questions. Thank you so much for the time to talk about this. And it's really great to meet all the partners on this call. I appreciate the opportunity, Erin.
Thanks, Kim. Okay, so next on the agenda, emergency response locating on trail. Aaron, is that you? You have your...
Yeah, let me share my screen again. Hold on.
while you're pulling that up, Kim, I just want to thank you so much. That was really informative. And I think some of those changes are going to be helpful for grant writers too, to kind of know what you're looking for and what to include in the grant application for funding. So thank you. Hey, Aaron.
Can you see the
Yep.
presentation now? Okay. Go to the next slide. So as Waterbury was completing their first phase of Greenway, they contacted me and asked about how other sections of Greenway Trail are dealing with emergency locating on the trail. So, you know, if you call 911 from somewhere on the trail, how are they going to be able to find you? And I thought there'd probably be, you know, a pretty standard thing that most trail communities are doing, but I found that's really not the case. So I reached out to Bruce Donald at the East Coast Greenway to ask about, you know, section of the Farmington Canal Trail or other trails. And it seems like there's no real standard. On the Farmington Canal Trail, they mark each intersection. So, you know, you would know at least, you know, what intersection you might be near. On some more remote sections, I'm not sure how well that would work. In Brookfield on the Still River Greenway, they use on the upper right-hand side of the slide, they use a code. So every 1/8 of a mile or so, or a 1/4 mile on the trail, there's these placards that have a code, and the police have those locations geocoded. So, you know, I suggested something like that might work. The problem on the Naugatuck River Greenway is that, you know, 1 mile or 2 mile sections are being built at a time. So it's very difficult to, you know, begin any kind of mileage system and, you know, have it be consistent across several sections of the trail. But what Waterbury has decided to do, and I think it serves a dual purpose, and because they've started their construction at the southern border of Waterbury, they're considering doing a mileage system where every 1/10 of a mile, there'll be a mile marker. So it'll be like 0.1, 0.2 all along the trail. So that'll actually serve, for people that are either running or walking and want to measure the distance they're walking, you know, that serves a purpose for that. And it also serves a purpose for emergency locating. So I suggested repurposing the signs that we developed for trailhead signage. And we actually, Ken, our new communications associate that's on the call here, mocked up a couple versions and sent them over to Waterbury. And I think they're leaning toward the one on the left, but I think it's still a discussion. So we're going to be working with the sign company that we developed the signs for to see what this would cost and whether, you know, since each sign is going to be different, you know, whether we need a setup fee for each one or if we can do decals or something like that to make it a little bit easier. So, you know, I think this could be easily implemented on other sections of the Naugatuck River Greenway. Consistency, you know, if you have a section of trail that's open, that's, you know, not necessarily one end or the other in your town, it might be a bit of a challenge once, you know, connecting sections are built. But you might need to, you know, sort of revise it at that point. So in Waterbury, it makes sense. You know, they're starting 0.0 at the southern border and working north to Eagle Street. So, you know, I think that works fine. And then they'll pick it up where they left off when they build phase 2. So if anybody else is thinking about implementing this or is interested, you know, reach out and let me know, and we can maybe make one big order for signs and I'll, you know, save a few bucks too. So yeah, that's all really I had to discuss about that, but happy to answer any questions.
Great, thanks, Aaron. I like that. So for some of those new people on the call who may not know, several years ago now, we did a universal branding and imaging that could be used by all trail users, that we have the logo and signage that's consistent. So I love that they've come up with this, and maybe we can add this right to that package as we move forward. So as people are going through our 11 different towns, they know they're still on the same trail network. So this is great. Thank you. All right, let's just jump right into some updates here. I don't see, I was looking, anybody from Waterbury on this call. Does somebody from the COG want to give an update on Waterbury Phase 1 and Phase 2?
Sure. So I talked to Judy yesterday, or emailed with Judy yesterday. So she can't make it because the city actually has a meeting with Federal Highways about their new raise grant that they got. So
awesome.
She's on a Greenway call, even though it's not our Greenway call. So a quick update on Phase 1. I went out there on Wednesday and took these pictures, and it looks great. So they have reached substantial completion on October 31st. So they're still working through a punch list of items that the contractor needs to address, but it is, for all intents and purposes, open to the public right now, and I've seen people using it. And it really looks great. It's pretty impressive. They installed the new comfort station at the corner of sort of the park at the corner of South Main and Platts Mill. And it's one of the nicer ones I've seen on any of the trails I've been to. It's still shrink wrapped right now, but I'm assuming they'll be opening that at some point. So the completion, so November 30th is the contract completion date. But the city's probably not going to have a formal opening of the trail until the spring. So I encourage anyone that's interested to get down there and check it out, because it's pretty nice. And then, so Waterbury Phase 2, and I think Mark can probably speak a little bit more to this than I can, but
I can give you a quick update. We had a meeting with the city just yesterday to discuss sort of the sequence of getting the project initiated, because the extension of the Greenway from Eagle Street up to West Main is just one component of the raise grant. The other part is rebuilding, renovating West Main Street itself. So, but the Phase 2 of the Greenway is going to be the most complicated, a little tricky aspect of the project. But we sort of have working on a sort of a sequence of activity, because we have to do a full environmental assessment of the proposed corridor, because it does go through a former industrial area and there's a lot of brownfield parcels, but we're trying to assemble a list of those parcels, and we're going to be working with the city on putting together a sort of scope of work for the environmental assessment activities. As Aaron mentioned, the city is in discussion with Federal Highway on the steps to initiate the project and put together agreements. That could take, unfortunately, it could take 6-9 months or even up to a year to get those agreements all in place. So we're not going to actually get started on this work for probably about a year. But in the meantime, we'll be working with the city to get everything ready. So when the agreement with Federal Highway is in place, we can issue RFQs for consultant services to do the environmental assessments. But it's the city's excited about getting it started and continuing the trail. But like I said, it's not going to be an easy corridor to deal with, but it lends itself well to the RAISE program, because it'd be hard to do using rec trails funds or the TA program funds. So, but we'll continue to provide updates as we move along.
Thanks, Mark and Aaron. And Sonia, I don't see Sheila. Is anybody else? You gonna do that, Aaron, too, or Mark?
Yeah, I don't have much update there. I know segment 3 and 4, again, those are complete. The city that I know of has not held an official opening, but they are open to the public. And then the routing study, I have not heard anything. I know they presented at the last meeting, I believe, that they were working on getting the public information meeting together, and I've not seen anything about that. So yeah, I'll check in and I'll include it in our notes.
Great. Jack, do you have an update on Derby?
Yeah, I think Mark can give you a better one with the, there are two segments being worked on, the Derby Shelton Bridge. And on the bridge, they've opened one lane, one of the new lanes between Derby and Shelton, complete redesign of the bridge. The work on Main Street in Derby, I'll put a link in the chat for a drone video overlooking the whole thing. So I'll give you a complete picture of it.
Yeah, and just with the Derby Shelton Bridge, right now, I guess where they're at now is they're waiting for UI to complete some of the utility relocation that they have to do. So if you go out there now, you may not see much activity. It's still moving. It hasn't stopped or for winter shutdown or anything like that. You know, with the weather nice, they're going to continue, but it is, they're waiting for the utility relocation. So, but that's moving right along, and they're on schedule to be done. Some early next year, I believe.
Great, thank you. So Torrington, I can give you a quick update on this. In October, we had a ribbon cutting for the riverfront apartments. Oh, and here's some videos. Thanks, Aaron. Or photos. This was a former brownfield site that we remediated and brought a developer in to create a mixed use, mixed affordability development. As part of our agreement with the developer, we asked them to build a section of trail. So last year, the city built about 1,000 feet of trail just before this, and you can see the developer came in as part of their project and built this next section, which goes to vacant property, and we're hoping to continue the trail the next year or two as that development moves forward. So this is pretty exciting. One of the things I would say, we had a big ribbon cutting here. I think some of you might have attended. You know, we had every state official, federal delegation out, and they commented on the trail being part of this development and the benefits of having rec trails close to housing and close to downtown. So I think I was really happy to see that they not only recognize that this is something that we purposely did, but that the benefit there was there. So that was great. And just one other update from Torrington perspective. Some of you may have come to a meeting we had at the senior center where we built a trail section, the senior center, and we built a trail section at our Toro fields and had a gap in the middle that was on road trail that is now under construction and will be dedicated trail segment. The Scoville Street is becoming one way. Half the road is becoming trail. The other half is still open for vehicles. Anybody else on the call have any updates they want to provide? What you're doing in your town?
I have one question. I don't know if Mark might be able to answer, but besides the Route 34 and the bridge work in Derby, Derby received another grant. It was a pretty large grant for transit-oriented development because, you know, the train station and the two routes, Route 8 and 34, all come together. Is there any kind of update on that? Because I would hope that was to tie in very well to the Greenway as well.
Yeah, I don't have a good update, I guess, but the state is initiating that project because that was again funded under the RAISE program, but we have not heard anything from them yet exactly, you know, where they are in the process. Again, as I mentioned with the Waterbury Phase 2 project, it takes a long time to get the agreements in place with Federal Highway, and they may still be working on that, but we have sent emails back up to the Office of Rail saying, look, you know, we really need to be included on any of your committees putting together this project. You know, the city has sort of asked us to sort of keep an eye on it and be, you know, their advisor, if you will. But yeah, we really haven't heard much on, you know, where they are. So it's got to be moving forward because under Ray's, there's very tight timelines. So you can't delay, they have to be moving on it. So yeah, I'm just not sure exactly where they are in initiating it.
Mark, that was a relatively large grant for a city the size of Derby, right?
Right, yeah, and I mean, the city's not handling it, it's a state DOT project. They got, the award was 12.1 million, but the total project is closer to 23.5 million. And the state is committed to, covering the difference between what was awarded and what the total project is. So the funding is in place, and and again, it is the state who's handling it. So, but the city is going to be, obviously on any kind of advisory committee to, have their input considered in the project. So that's again what we're sort of waiting on.
Thanks.
Mark, oh, sorry. I was just going to ask Mark, what exactly is that going to fund?
Well, it's a complete renovation of the Derby Shelton Rail Station. They're going to do, the station building itself was built in 1890 something. So they're going to renovate the building. They're going to put in high-level platforms, a canopy over the platform, the whole length, a better passenger not really climate control, but a better shelter area for passengers waiting to train, waiting for the train. The other thing is dedicated sort of bus space, because the station is served by Greater Bridgeport Transit as well as CT Transit. And right now they just sort of, stop in the driveway and then drop people off. So they're going to have better designated bus space of, passengers have a better way of, boarding and alighting and things like that. The key, I think what Jack is most interested in, is they are going to make better pedestrian and bike connections to the downtown area. As part of the Route 34 project, the area, sort of behind Home Depot is going to be turned into a 10-foot wide bike trail or multi-use trail. And the city does still have a commitment to sort of create a bike ped connection, through the South Main Street redevelopment area. So the station project would, continue those bike ped connections into the station area and through the parking lot, which right now there is none because it goes underneath the overpass of Route 8. It's kind of a dark, area, uninviting. So they're going to be taking care of that.
Tony, and then we'll go to Brian for an update.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I just wanted to speak on the behalf of the town of Watertown, and there's no update on our trail because it doesn't exist yet. But as you know, we've applied in the past to rec trails, at least for design funds. And so just on behalf of the town and just wanted to continue to express our interest in moving that segment along from Frostbridge Road to the Thomaston line. And Kimberly, I appreciate the presentation. And Paul Benevich, our town engineer, is on the line. We got a couple of good hints there. While we have some time between now and when the applications are due, there are things we could work on, like, next tier right-of-way discussions. And we had a couple false starts with the city of Waterbury putting a meeting together to try to discuss how the Greenways connect between Watertown and Waterbury, and with that DE&I component, that may be something we could work on over the winter as well to sort of figure out how those trails connect. So I just thought I would, just to give that brief, update. And again, I appreciate the hints or the tips along the way here. I'd be looking forward to that revised application.
Great, thank you. And Brian?
Yeah, hi everyone. I don't really have an update or anything, but I just wanted to ask, is there any planning studies or anything going on for the town of Seymour through the Route 42 corridor connection and other things? I know, Mark, I asked you this a couple of months ago, but I just wanted to follow up. And I was hoping that if possible, we can set up a meeting with others in town and the VCOG's engineers to kind of come up with some sort of planning study as we move forward. The town of Seymour applied for a Connecticut Community Challenge grant, and we're waiting to hear on that for the 42 corridor, and the Greenway Trail is going to be part of that. But there's other areas that we need to connect to and complete the connection down to Ansonia. And it's a difficult spot where we are, but I was just curious if there's any movement on that. Thank you.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, the town, submitted the application to DECD for the Community Challenge grant, to support the Haynes proposal for redeveloping that area. I mean, we keep working at it. I know the town did get some dedicated congressional funding to sort of support, installing some of the infrastructure that is needed in that corridor. One of the big stumbling blocks is, in order for the sort of the TOD development that Haynes is proposing to really work, we're trying to relocate the Seymour train station into that site. There's still reluctance on the department, DOT's perspective on the feasibility of doing that. So it's complicated. There's a lot of sort of moving parts. So we keep working at it, and maybe one day we'll actually succeed in getting enough money to do the whole thing. I mean, it's a great project if we could, just get it off the ground and moving. There's a lot of benefits that would accrue, but it's just a matter of getting it started. It seems like it's one of those classic catch-22s where the DOT is reluctant to commit to relocating the station until they see Haynes actually putting a shovel in the ground. Haynes is reluctant to put a shovel in the ground so they know that the station is going to be relocated. So it's something we keep working at. And yeah, it's what, 10 years in the making, 15 years in the making. We've been working on this. So that's where we're at.
All right, thank you.
Okay, I don't see anybody else's hand up. Were there any other comments?
Rista, I just have one quick question to Kim. With the new rec trails solicitation, I know there was some discussion that some of the highly ranked applications from the last round would be sort of reconsidered in this new round. Is that sort of the case, or do those projects need to just resubmit an application? Is she still on the line or no?
Her camera's off. She may be.
Okay. No, I mean, it's because I know, and this is getting back to what Tony was referring to with the Watertown section, along the from Crossbridge Road up to Thomaston, because again, the idea is that we just need to get a good design put together that addresses some of the department's concerns related to the possible impact of the water main there. But once we can, do that, unlocks, funding for Thomaston's section as well as the Watertown section, because we do have funding sort of allocated in our LOTSIT program. So, but again, if Tony and Paul, we'll definitely work with you guys to resubmit an application if that's what's required. But again, I think that's probably the highest priority, because we're just looking for design funds, and once the design is done, we can construct it under the LOTSIT program.
Thanks, Brooke. And I know Kim's not here, and I can give very high level overview because I sit on the Connecticut Greenways Council. And we can confirm this with Kim. I believe that you'll have to resubmit your application. Yeah. But we try to keep the application similar, so it's not a whole bunch of new work. We really modified a lot of the funding. Oh, there she is.
Sorry, had a quick brief call that someone had sent me. So yes, Andrista is completely correct. So you will resubmit. Okay. The reason we're having resubmittals, there was some discussion of looking at projects directly and, trying to funding through. The question that came up there is because I know it hasn't been a ton of time since the last round, but we weren't certain if funding had already been allocated to different projects. And because of the revisions in how we're reviewing the grants and scoring them, we want to do resubmittals. So that's why, like I said in my overview, the application is very close. There may be 2 or 3 additional pieces that you just have to kind of check the boxes on, but it should be a fairly easy resubmittal.
Yeah, and again, I just wanted to get clarification. And again, it's not a problem if we have to, we can work with the town very closely, and we can help get that application together pretty quickly. I just wanted to clarify, just if we have to, that's fine. It's just that we didn't want to think, oh, we're all set, and then find out we needed to submit. So thanks for the clarification.
Absolutely.
Thanks. All right, so that's a good segue to the next section here to discuss some funding submissions and opportunities. And I think before we get too far into this, I just wanted to say, I think it was last week, these weeks all blend together, but I went to the CCM conference and I sat in on one of the seminars where Commissioner Dykes and Commissioner Giletti from DOT were the presenters. And one of the things that they kind of drilled home was there is a lot of funding coming from a lot of different areas right now. So if you have projects, to reach out and maybe to start with Kim from a trail perspective and DOT and kind of say, this is my project. What are some of these funding opportunities, or are there opportunities, instead of trying to search all the different funding opportunities and make them fit your project. So I just, I wanted to pass that along because I thought that was pretty good feedback we were receiving from the state. Aaron, did you want to get into any of the details on these, or just kind of?
So, I think we can, first of all, I just noticed that Vin Seifert has his hand up. I don't know.
Oh,
sorry.
Hi, yeah, just briefly, I wanted to share a little bit of good news in Naugatuck. The same developer that worked in Torrington, Penrose, is in contract negotiations for TOD development in Naugatuck. And of course, the Greenway would be going right through there. And there's another adjacent property that another developer, I think it's Quavis Group from Bridgeport, is in negotiations with the town. And so Jim Stewart and I are constantly reminding the mayor and the board to advance the Greenways as a priority. And of course, there's total support with that. So just wanted to share that good news.
Great, thank you. That is exciting.
Yeah. So yeah, for the recreational trails grant, right now we have like 4 months before the deadline almost. So, I think it's not too soon to start, really thinking about what your towns might be interested in applying for and reaching out to us. We can provide quite a bit of assistance as long as we have time to do that. But also to think about potential regional applications. We've been pretty successful in the past with the signage program we did. We also did the original Rec Trails grant application. So, if there's something that 2 towns or 3 towns want to collaborate on, or if there's something that you think the entire trail needs, let's start thinking about that now, and we can possibly submit something from the COG.
And I just want to add to when you're thinking about putting together a Rec Trails application, because of the equity piece is becoming more and more of a I don't say something we need to consider. Again, we can help put together that data because we do have a fairly robust and strong DEI group in our office. So any kind of information mapping, related to the equity and distressed communities, just don't hesitate to reach out to us, because we have a lot of that information already pulled together.
Yeah, and we do have, so we have the project priorities document that we put together last year, or updated last year. And I think most of that's still the same, although, I know at least one of those projects has been funded that was on our priorities list. But, it's a good place to start. And, Yeah. Happy to talk about it. So Kim, I had one question about rec trails. So, in the past, it's really been, I don't think there's necessarily a cap on the funding requests, but seems like there's like a unofficial cap around $300,000 or $400,000. So on multi-use trail projects like ours, that tends to fund more design projects or, planning projects. Is that still the case with the increase in funding? I mean, it's still, you're still going to be considering the same types of projects.
So I do think that the increase in funds probably lends itself for consideration of some larger opportunities and grants, and in particular, if it's supporting a lot of our statewide efforts. So I would say there is definitely an interest of making sure we get the furthest stretch of these funds that we can. So in terms of discussions and the way we're working through the advisory role of the Greenways Council, I do anticipate we're probably going to see that same range of funding focus. However, if you do have a very large project, reach out to me. The other thing that we can consider, especially for those projects that are supporting alternative transportation and that wider range of opportunities, is making sure we're talking to Anna as well and looking at upcoming funding opportunities and how we might best be able to look at how those can be funded through the range of sources that we have. So I would anticipate it's probably going to be similar, but we do have quite a bit more funding this year. So Aaron, feel free to, I'm happy to discuss some of the opportunities that might come up and help give some advice on that as this moves ahead. The other thing is if you're able to send that priority list, that would be great. If you could send that my way.
I can send you a link right now.
Great.
All right, so I think this is a pretty good list of some of the different funding opportunities that we can keep our eye on to move these types of projects forward. I don't know, I think the round 2 Connecticut Community Challenge is closed. I'm not sure if there'll be a round 3, but the Community Investment Fund for those municipalities that are eligible, that's still available. That round is now open. It opened November 1st.
And those eligible towns are Ansonia, Beacon Falls, Derby, Naugatuck, Thomaston, and Waterbury along the river.
Yep. And Torrington.
And Torrington, sorry.
Sorry. So
if I may just sort of speak a little bit on the congressionally directed spending and
Sure.
the transportation alternatives programs. We did submit a number of trail projects to the Naugatuck+Valley region. Actually, four of our 5 congressmen or congresspeople in the state are part of our region. So we actually submitted some projects to everybody. Unfortunately, none of them were, made it through the appropriations phase and were funded. But our understanding is that it's not likely to go away. There's probably going to be another round of the directed spending requests. So keep that in mind, and maybe we can do a little bit better job of promoting some of the projects so that they can get put into the appropriations bills and get funded. So just something to keep in mind. We think there's going to be another round of these. We'll see. In terms of transportation alternatives, again, Rista, I know the commissioners always like to talk that, oh yeah, there's a lot of funding out there. But when it actually gets down to getting that money back down to the regions, it has become very, very difficult. And it's kind of frustrating because a lot of project sponsors hear that there's money available, but when they actually go to apply, there isn't. And TA is one of those programs that we have been. We went through a solicitation a couple of years ago. We reconfirmed our projects that we had submitted. And, it makes it into the DOT, and, we're sort of at we're at their mercy to get the thing, projects out the door. I keep pushing the department to consider turning the TA program over to the MPOs and to the regions, and have the state sort of get out of that work, because, I think if the money was provided directly to the regions, we have a better opportunity to get the projects done. Sort of like the LOTSIP, LOTSIP, they gave our state money so that we can get out of the federal aid program. And we're building a lot more projects than we could have under a federal aid program. A similar kind of approach with TA, let the regions handle. We can prioritize our projects and get the money, to the towns quicker than going through a state. That's still a discussion, but I keep pushing it, pushing for it. So we'll see, what happens with that. But I think if the regions were provided the money directly, I think we have a much better ability to get things funded and built. RAISE is also, it's a 5-year program. We're in year 2, I think. Again, it might be something we could consider doing, because again, RAISE is a very large discretionary program. We could conceivably put together a multi-town concept for building a trail section using the RAISE funding. The big issue with that, it's an 80-20 program, so we'd have to identify where that 20% non-federal share is coming from. But it's something to think about going forward. If there's several towns could get together and say, okay, let's put together an application under RAISE to actually build this longer section. Tony mentioned the section between Frostbridge Road down to downtown Waterbury. I mean, that's might lend itself to a fairly large RAISE program, because it's it could be very expensive to build, but it's just something to keep in mind going forward.
All right, thank you. Public outreach.
Yeah, I can sort of talk a little bit about that. So we've had a few opportunities to talk about the Greenway to the public. That's Katie Schlick, who I think is on the call still, at Ansonia Fall Festival last month. And they asked us to come specifically to talk about the Greenway. We were also at their Earth Day celebration in the spring, and talking about compost bins and other environmental stuff, but we also talked about the Greenway, and I think that was what resonated the most with their visitors. So that we were out at that. We also had a table set up at the Envision conference, which was NVCOG's big, well, I think we're supposed to do it every 5 years or every 4 years conference where we talk about the region. And again, I talked to a lot of people about the Greenway. I talked to Brian. That's where I actually met Brian. So, I think we reached a lot of people. There was a lot of interest from residents that were there as well. So, we have a lot of materials. We have all the reports that we've ever published here. We have posters and all sorts of good stuff that we can, if you have events that you want a presence at, we can provide that stuff to you. If we are available, staff can come out and talk to residents as well. So, let us know. We're always willing to help out.
Thanks, Aaron. And then Kinneytown Dam.
Yeah, so just give you a really brief update. So NVCOG has applied for 2 $15 million grants to basically take ownership of the dam, evaluate all of the sediments behind it, which is going to be a big issue, and design a deconstruction plan to take the dam down. We're still waiting to hear on those grants from NOAA, but the idea is that the Connecticut Brownfields Land Bank would hold title to to the property while this was all happening. And then the property would be returned to Ansonia and Seymour at the end. So why I think it's relevant to this meeting is that there, if that dam's removed, it really opens up a lot of opportunities to where there's really no opportunity right now, or very little opportunity to route the Greenway between Seymour and Ansonia. So, that was part of our application. So, the design of that section would be conceivably undertaken as part of our project if we get full funding. And there's also a really good opportunity in Ansonia, sort of there's right where 4th Street, I believe it's 4th Street extension is right along the river. Although you wouldn't know it because you have a canal and a defunct powerhouse between that neighborhood and the river. So there's a really good opportunity to reconnect that neighborhood to the river as well. So, we're thinking all of this, we're thinking about, I'm definitely keeping the Greenway in the discussion, every discussion we have about Kinneytown Dam, because I think it's really important to, whatever happens there to ensure that, the Greenway and river access for residents is being considered. So I'm hoping the next meeting will have some good news to share about that funding, and hopefully we'll be underway with something at that point.
Great, thanks, Aaron. All right, so the next is our 2023 dates. A couple of years ago, we went from monthly to every other month, and now we're down to like quarterly meetings, which I think is good. I think this is a good time frame. We get a lot of information. It's enough time for there to be updates. But one of the things that we kind of have geared kind of over to is just virtual meetings. Prior to the pandemic, we were meeting either at the COG office or at specific towns along the Greenway and doing field trips, having a brief meeting, and then kind of walking the trail, seeing some of the different projects. And I just wanted to get a sense of people who are on the call. I really enjoyed that. I liked to see what other people were doing, looking at trails, walking on them, seeing them under construction, seeing the ribbon cuttings and being part of that. Is there any interest to go back to that kind of a model meeting starting next year? Or do we really want to stay virtual, or maybe do a split? What's some thoughts of some of the members on this call? Anybody?
Yeah, I think it's always positive when you get a chance to see progress actually being made. It's one thing to sit there and talk about it, but it's quite different when you get to see it. Last year or earlier this year, we had the chance to go to Waterbury and see that and realize it was coming close, because this is a long-term project, and it's easy to lose faith in it. I tend to think of Mayor Loretti in Shelton, all that's happened there. And he always said that, well, it's better to try and hit a lot of singles than a grand slam. And you think about that. We've hit a lot of singles in this project, but it'll be a long way before we complete the grand slam of the whole thing. So any progress that we can physically see, I think, is a positive.
And I think that's 100% correct. And I also think that as the different trail pieces get developed, we can learn from each other. We can kind of see what they look like, what were some of the pros, what were some of the cons. And if you have a visual, even seeing how people are using different pieces of trails in different ways, I think is helpful as we all move forward and develop our trail segments. So any other comments on that?
No, I would agree with Jack was saying. If they enjoyed the walk in Waterbury last spring or whatever it was, and if we can have others, that would be great.
All right, so I'll work, Jack and I and Aaron can work together to figure out the locations for those next for the 4 meetings in 2023. If anybody has a great idea or would be willing to host a meeting, reach out to Aaron, I guess, and we'll get that on the schedule.
And we've definitely had better attendance since we started at least having a hybrid option. So, I think we should keep that. And it does make it a little more difficult to go on the road and have a meeting and keep it, that capability. But, we can figure it out or we can have a, you know, a virtual meeting and have a separate sort of field trip. So, but yeah, I agree that it's really important to get out and walk these things and talk to people about stuff. So.
Great. All right. Anything else, Aaron, Mark?
I just want to say that our, let's see if I can bring it up. So I've made a few updates to the landing page for the Naugatuck River Greenway on the COG website. So we've added the design and management guide right on here. So if you're ever looking for it, it's also in our publications. Both of these documents are in our publications, so you can search on our publications page, or if you go to nvcog.ct.gov/NRG, it'll get you here pretty easily. So we're always looking to update these websites and make them a little more user friendly. So if there's stuff that you want posted, let us know, and we can get it up there.
Great. All right, we had a few more minutes before the end of the meeting, so I just we can adjourn early or open it up if anybody had any last minute comments that they wanted to, or updates they wanted to make. All right. Well, thank you all for attending, and we will see you in February.
Great, thank you. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Thanks.
Good holidays.
Yeah, happy holidays.